Hello again. In this clip, we're looking at clause 713, infrastructure, relevant to ISO 9001. So it's a short enough clause, so the clip itself won't be very long. Let's read through the criteria. The organisation shall determine, provide and maintain the infrastructure necessary for the operation of its processes and to achieve conformity of products and services. That's an important word that we haven't really, looked at products and services in terms of conformity before. So that would be mainly based on customer requirements and so on. Maybe requirements of legislation over product specifications, licensing obligations and so on, that could come into it. So infrastructure can include A, buildings and associated utilities. Straightforward enough. Although this current January 2021 COVID era, not too many buildings are being fully utilized at the moment, and a lot of organizations who have moved to remote working to keep going are probably looking at the balance sheet and saying, well, is there really a need to open up these buildings with all of the costs that's associated with them? So those who are remote working may not see buildings and utilities as being important, but there will be considerations for the organization in the remote environment as well. Provision of connectivity and so on. So buildings and utilities where it's, for example, with a logistics company, shipping company, that nature where there's a lot of warehousing and physical storage of equipment and product. Well, there's no escaping it. You're already probably formal enough with regard to health and safety and environmental, particularly with regard to carrying out inspections of the buildings. Infrastructure also includes utilities, which we can't do without: electricity, gas, connectivity, and all of those associated services. Point B is equipment, including hardware and software. So a lot of people, well, I'm sure it's very easy to conceptualize hardware as being equipment, but a lot of people wouldn't have considered software as being equipment. And the way to look at that would be simple enough, really. When you think of it, it's the provision of a tool for use, and it actually has a processing quality. So in that regard, it is a piece of equipment because it actually has a function and does something on your behalf. Transport resources in point C. Well, you might need to get product to a customer, but you might also need to get your people to a customer where you might have to go there to carry out work. So that's an important consideration. For sales departments, we have the ubiquitous sales rep and the sales car and the leasing agreements and so on that go with that. So it's very important then to consider all of this with regard to, what do you need to provide for the operation of services and supports to employees where appropriate. Information and communication technology. Okay, so we may have already looked at hardware and software, but really that's to do with processing and operational requirements. Information and communication technology is more about the supporting infrastructure, telephones and internet itself. Straightforward enough, though, is this idea that I'm going to introduce now of the use of an asset register. So those of you working on the statement of applicability where you've looked at asset management, an asset register can be a software application, or indeed it can be a spreadsheet. There will be a subsequent video clip looking at the asset management spreadsheet, an asset register. But likewise, an organization isn't obliged to use a spreadsheet. It can use a software application. People in the Microsoft world would be familiar with Intune for managing endpoints. And in Google G Suite and so on, you'll have facilities buried within the admin console to manage endpoints and such equipment. I think for most organizations we work with, the spreadsheet is still applicable because they want to use the asset register to manage other equipment such as cars, vans, other equipment that they would use in the delivery of their processes. So really don't want to spend too much more time on it. Once again, the clause largely speaks for itself, but I think it's important that you consider all of your obligations for infrastructure, including those to satisfy contextual aspects of the business. Okay, please get in touch if you need to have any little bit of advice or guidance via the chat box on the website. Take care.